Your attention, please. The Nook Inc. Getaway Package charter flight will soon be arriving at the deserted island.
As we all know, or I assume you know as you're watching this video, Animal Crossing New Horizons, the first Switch release for the Animal Crossing series, was announced for March of 2020 during this year's E3. With this announcement, we got 20 solid minutes of gameplay from Nintendo Treehouse, and that's not including the new official New Horizons trailer. Though, New Horizons is the first in the Animal Crossing series that doesn't utilize the advantage of dual screens, like those provided to us on the DS, which in turn has a lot of us wondering, how will the UI controls and screens look on the Nintendo Switch? Well, during E3, we found out. I personally think it looks a little bit cramped on the Switch's small screen, but it does look very user-friendly for touch control capability. I do have to admit though, I will miss the feature that you could actually place the piece of furniture and see how it looks in your home without anything blocking it like it was in New Leaf. But we got something even cooler to make up for that, which was an entirely new set of GUI, which includes a new camera, Nook Miles app, DIY recipes, map, and a call a friend function. All of which I'll delve more into later. All this GUI talk actually brings me to talk about a functionality which was present in Happy Home Designer but not the main game, which you might recognize as placing furniture outside of your home. Finally, I've actually been wanting this for a really long time. I actually don't own the Happy Home Designer series, so I'm really happy to see that this is included in the actual base main game. Though I have some questions for 2020 when it comes out, if there are certain limitations to placing certain items outside of your home, such as the Whips Magic lamp from New Leaf and from City Folk. Rounding back to the discussion about the new GUI, the only qualm that I have is the map. So I feel like it's going to be taking up half the screen, and if you have a Nintendo Switch, you probably know the screens are really hella small. I really liked how the map was on the bottom half of the, non-essential GUI on the bottom of the DS screen, and I'm praying that they're not going to implement this in a really weird way on the Nintendo Switch. Also, I'm not entirely sure about how I feel about having the map not readily available to you while you're walking across, but the sacrifices you have to make for Animal Crossing New Horizons. This part of the Nintendo Treehouse presentation might look a little familiar to you Animal Crossing Pocket Camp fans. Right here we see it's the entire crafting system implemented into the main game. It also kind of resembles Minecraft's crafting system, but I guess a little bit more creative. If you're not familiar with that, it's in the bottom right corner. And I don't know, I just found it really interesting how they took parts of Happy Home Designer and took parts of Pocket Camp and took what the fans loved the most and mashed it all into the new title for the Nintendo Switch. I'm also really happy to see the crafting system implemented in a way that doesn't involve micro purchases, or at least what I hope aren't micro purchases, because Nintendo's pretty good on that front. And again, here we see another feature that I really wanted to be implemented, which was crafting your own accessories and crafting your own clothes. It seems like Nintendo really listened to its fans and actually almost kind of used Pocket Camp as a test trial run to see how the fans would really respond to having the crafting system and being able to craft your own clothes. And really, I feel like they used Pocket Camp to introduce these concepts to us, which I found was a really cool transition from game to game. Also, not entirely sure if you noticed here, but in the top right corner of the crafting system, you see there's a separate thing for inventory and a separate thing for wardrobe. Now, I find this really interesting, and I don't know where it's going, but I really like the separation of these two concepts. Now, here you'll see more of a demonstration about how resources are really gathered for the crafting system. You'll see you can get tree branches, stuff like that, stones, flowers, all the natural resources that you need. But The only qualm, or I guess the only worry that I have with this, is that due to the amount of time that the player is going to be playing the game, or the amount of items that's going to be supplied, I guess, at one time, I feel like there's not going to be enough items for the player to do the things that they want. I feel like it's going to have to be a system kind of Pocket Camp, where you had to wait a certain amount of time for this amount of items because the items only appear at 30-minute intervals or some random number like that. Now, while I am sure it's not going to be exactly like Pocket Camp because a lot of that system relied on in-app purchases, and I feel like Nintendo and Animal Crossing, they don't really do in-app purchases and microtransactions like that. That is still a concern that I do have. But, I'm sure they'll implement something where, like you just saw, you hit a rock and you get this amount of rocks from it. You hit a tree, you get this amount of wood from it. Stuff like that. More so an action and supply system versus a demand and time and then supply system. And of course, as with every new Animal Crossing game, comes new Animal Crossing villagers. Now, from what I've seen from the footage so far, the only one we actually know the names of are Fuchsia, and I think that's it. I tried to scrub through the footage and grab all the new villagers that I saw and put them on screen. Now, during this screen, I actually wanted to point out a couple of things. Here you can see the player character actually goes to one of Nook's stores to use the craft bench, or the workbench. And I feel like that was really interesting because there's a distinction between what you can craft between Tom Nook's workbench and your DIY recipe GUI. Now, it looks like a lot of Tom Nook stuff is actually tools, so I think it's really cool that you craft tools this time around rather than buying them. But seeing this actually kind of got me worried because I thought the buy function was going to be gone and all the furniture you make, I guess, in this series was going to be either with the workbench or with your DIY recipe. But as you can see popping up right here, you can actually sell and buy stuff from Tom Nook's. So not only do we have the DIY craft function, we have the workbench craft function, and we have buying from Tom Nook. Now, I'm a bit concerned because I don't really know where the recycle center is with my favorite 2 llamas, but I'm sure it's going to be in there even though it wasn't in this demo. I hope to God it's going to be there because it was one of my favorite features and I guess one of the biggest money makers I saw or I used in New Leaf personally. Although I think that it's really cool that we have all these features to make and buy and sell items, I kind of am gonna miss a little aesthetic feature, which is having the actual items out so you can see what's on sale. That's just a personal preference of mine. I thought it was really cute and I really liked it. But this also has me wondering if clothes are something that you can buy or if it's something that you have to craft yourself. Now, I'm sure that Animal Crossing will definitely include clothes. That's like one of its major sell points. You can customize your character. But, I was just a little concerned with that because I didn't see any clothes in the demo, in the treehouse, or in the trailer. So actually here on this screen you see a new currency in New Horizons called Nook Miles. So I'm assuming here it's something akin to Meow Tickets where you do certain actions and you get these incentives to play the game and you get this exclusive currency that's really hard to come by and you use it to buy exclusive items from the campsite. It was the campsite in New Leaf. In New Horizons, I'm not exactly sure what Nook Miles are going to be used for, but I'm sure it's going to be used to get some really, really nice items, considering how much Nook likes to gouge the player for money. Like, I'm really not surprised that he has invented this new currency. And you see as the Nintendo Treehouse team actually scrolls across the cards, you can see some sample goals that you can use. I'm sure that these are not all the goals, but just the ones that they showed in the Treehouse. But yeah, you can kind of see its correlation to Meow coupons now. Now, this one coming up was a feature that I was actually really happy to see. I saw little Tommy walking around in the village and could actually talk to the player character, which was something that we didn't have in New Leaf or City Folk. And I'm not really sure about Happy Home Designers because again, I don't own that one, but it's really cool how all these villagers are free roam. So I really, really, really hope all these villagers are free roam, because there are some ones that I would really like to talk to and befriend and see more of them outside of, game functionality. I've grown really fond of these villagers and I really like to talk to them some more, honestly. One of my big hopes is that all of the villagers at some point, you get to talk to them and they get to roam around and they get to do, like regular villager stuff, and you can go to their home and they can invite you there and stuff like that. So, I'm really hoping for that. That's a bit of a stretch, but I saw Tommy and I got really excited. Now, here's the really, really exciting part that I'm excited for, is multiplayer functionality. So I'm assuming that you are going to need Nintendo Online for this, because that's the online service for the Nintendo Switch. Sorry that you have to buy another online service, but I feel like if you have a Switch, you should have this already. But yeah, you can actually call your friend over from another device. Hopefully they integrate some kind of half Joy-Con, like one Joy-Con per person, multiplayer functionality, but I really don't think that's going to be a thing. I think you're going to have to purchase your own game copy and your own console to play along with a friend. But I love to say that I'm really happy that this functionality has been included. The only thing I'm concerned about is the best friend functionality. Like, you got to see when you got to mark certain people as best friends, and you got to see when they were online, and you got to say, hey, da-da-da-da, and you got to send messages to them, like, via the little Nintendo DS best friend function on the Animal Crossing New Leaf version. But from what I see here, I can't make any definite judgments from this demo. It does look like you can't really do that. So unfortunately, no best friends, but fortunately, multiplayer is coming to Animal Crossing New Horizons. Just like with New Leaf, it looks like any friend or islander you invite to your world or town can do most of the same things that you can do. Besides control your town, make any ordinances, basic stuff like that, or I should say more advanced and important stuff like that. It seems that they can cut down trees just like your player can. They can collect resources, they can place items, they can pick up items, all the sort of stuff that you would expect from a multiplayer title in the Animal Crossing series. Now, I zoomed in here so you can better see it, but you see when the player actually chops down the tree, they get like different types of wood. This kind of reminded me of, how Minecraft has different types of wood, and with that you can make different types of doors, trapdoors, basically furniture. I'm hoping that Animal Crossing actually uses this feature as a replacement for the, removal of retail. Well, assuming that retail is removed, because we don't know. Again, this is just a little bit of gameplay that we got from Nintendo Treehouse. But, however, on a less depressing note, it seems that we got a functionality to actually change who is hosting the world. Now, I found that this was really interesting because the implications that this has is that your friend can play on your world while you're gone. It also introduces the possibility of towns being stored in the Nintendo Cloud, which again suggests a feature that a lot of people have been asking for, which was multiple towns on one gameplay save. Now, I'm not sure that this is exactly what changing the host of the game means, but I thought this was a really interesting theory. And here's something else that you'll be excited to hear. We still have emotes. Now, granted, it doesn't look like as many as emotes as they were available on the DS. Again, it's just a demo, it's just a little bit of gameplay. The game is still not finished, things could change, and maybe there's actually a screen where you can select what emotes are available, at one click. Kind of like speed dial, but speed emotes. And now it's time for one of the last new GUI functions that has been introduced, I guess, in the Nintendo Treehouse playthrough, which was the camera. So unfortunately, you cannot take photos from the player character's point of view, which would have been really cool. But there's actually I find it so funny, it's an in-game filter, so you can change it between glamour, dramatic, and a few others that I just missed. They're on screen. You can scroll back a couple seconds if you need to, but you can zoom in or out, take pictures, which I guess is really good for media sharing. It's It's a very minuscule change, but very cute nonetheless. You'll have to forgive my numerous references to other video games, but as you can see there, we have some new items and resources. So that kind of reminded me of Stardew Valley, where you see an artifact in the ground and you use your tool to dig it up, and there it is. Now, while this is a new thing that I did spot in the Treehouse gameplay, I don't expect it to be the only new resource. I'm hoping for a lot of, actually a ton of different fruits, perhaps the introduction of different colored flowers, and a lot of other gameplay functions and resources that we haven't seen in previous games. If you zoom in on the bottom right there, you'll see a map, and on the bottom of that map, you'll see an airplane. So from there, I feel like it's safe to assume that the player will be able to travel to different places. Perhaps I'm overthinking this and it's more of a Tortheimer's Island sort of deal, but I still found it interesting nonetheless. Now in the official trailer, we see the player character hopping over the river using a stick, another scene where the player character digs up a tree using a shovel, one more where the player character is rolling a snowball, another where the player character is actually paving a path, and one more where the player character actually takes the bulbs of the flower without destroying the flower itself. All these aspects of gameplay seem relatively new, save for the snowball rolling snowman feature that we see in New Leaf and City Folk. But this actually has my hopes really high for the new Nintendo Animal Crossing game. Lots of new content, lots of new activities to do, and lots of new tools to make. Even this ending title screen that we see right here shows us a lot of more character customization opportunities. All in all, I'd say Animal Crossing New Horizons is looking pretty good.